First off, let's go back, all the way back to 95. March 10th, 1995 to be precise. This was the day that the world was introduced to a 3D rail shooter and one killer-ass blue dragon. Upon its release, many praised its gameplay, its replayability, the many cutscenes that tried to flesh out a simple story, and its dystopian, almost primal atmosphere. While there were many who lamented its frame rate and the bone-crushing difficulty, the game was overall a massive success for the still relatively new 32-bit Sega Saturn. Fast forward 2 months, and the US would see a surprise launch of the Saturn with the most badass mic drop in gaming history coming moments later.
$299.
I want you to keep that surprise launch in mind for later on. Now, of the 5 games present at launch, Panzer Dragoon was the only one to be fully 3D, and also not be an arcade port. And to say the game was well received will be a massive disservice to it. No, Panzer Dragoon didn't just succeed, it bloody well exceeded all expectations. This simple yet difficult to master game pushed many gamers to beat their times, increase their hit rates, replay the game until their fingers were numb from smashing the A, B, and C buttons. This was a game that taunted you when you died. Extra lives were given based on performance, and those lives would be stripped away with ease even on the easiest difficulty. And an even bigger slap in the face was the lack of a save function, so you could at least have a moment's reprieve when you were just too jostled. Put bluntly, the game is an outright nightmare sometimes, and I absolutely love it. So too did many more, and out of every game in the franchise, this is easily the one with the most screen time, seeing not only its original release, but also a PC port, a PS2 port on the Sega Ages line, and as an unlockable extra in the OG Xbox's Panzer Dragoon Orta. And as of today, at least while I'm writing this, we now have a full-blown remake for the Nintendo Switch. And this, my dear viewer, is where I would normally be filled with excitement, grinning from ear to ear, ready to drop that sweet reveal. But no, not this time. This time I'm pissed. And for a lot of different reasons, actually. So yeah, welcome to the channel. I'm the SSG, and this is how Panzer Dragoon Remake fails its original. To begin with, let's get the positives out of the way. This game looks absolutely amazing on a 40-inch modern OLED, as well as the Switch's own screen. It's vibrant, colorful, the environments have been lovingly recreated, and the enemies have been fully fleshed out in a way that truly blows me away. I mean, the amount of detail put into many of these characters and enemy designs is absolutely jaw-dropping. In so many ways, this game has ripped open the veil that covered the world of Panzer Dragoon and its dystopian future. Utilizing Mobius's original artwork as inspiration, we are finally seeing the hostile environments of Pandora in their best form to date. Or maybe it's Mars if you're so inclined to some of the fan theories at least. Every cutscene has been remade in its entirety, with some even having added bits tacked on. And they are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, quite frankly, from a strictly visual standpoint, this game is a love letter to the series. Another positive for sure is the frame rate. While the Switch is woefully underpowered compared to its counterparts, there were very few noticeable frame drops. Probably the only notable moments of drop were during some of the cutscenes. This could have more than likely been smoothed out if the game had been locked at 30, and that's also why this video is at 30 frames per second, by the way. The original score has also been brought back, thankfully, with many tracks even sounding better now. As well, Remake introduced a new control scheme that modernizes the tried and true movement of the original and brings it more in line with that of a modern FPS, with each analog stick having independent movement and both lower triggers being used to fire your weaponry. Another interesting improvement is the ability to control your cursor speed, something that we will most certainly get back to in a minute, I promise. Now for a few of the so-sos, and most of these are either personal grievances or what I've seen from the community members and Let's Players. The size of the dragon. This is probably the one thing I've seen the most, that and the dragon's animations, and its incessant bobbing. While I personally don't have any real issue with it, I can see how some may. There's also instances where the music just kind of abruptly stops, but it really wasn't an issue for me personally. And the grievances towards the new VFX, like the dragon's roar and your weapon sounds, really they kind of just boggle my mind. If I'm being completely honest here, most of the grievances towards sound and visuals boggle my mind. See, this is where I'm about to get into the negatives. And there's a lot. And I can already see angry comments being spammed in my comments section. Stuff like, it can't be that bad, man. No, you just don't like this, or that it's on the Switch, or maybe that it's a limited run thing. Hell, you said as much on Twitter and Facebook, SSG. By the way, I don't delete comments unless it's straight repugnant or filled with hate and name calling, so if you don't see your comment, my filter's probably caught it. Look, I like honesty, unabashed, brutal honesty, and quite frankly, I didn't enjoy playing this game. I was optimistically hoping that my thoughts and opinions based on what others had said previously would be wrong, and that I would find myself at the edge of my seat enjoying every second of this remake, but that's not what happened. First of all, the controls, especially the new setup, absolutely suck. A lot of this has to do with input delay and the inability to really spam your gun. See, Panzer Dragoon relies on a quadrant-based combat system. Enemies come at you from all angles, many times at a blistering pace. What the remake and in turn the Switch gives you is a horrible analog stick. One that seems to have a dead zone the width of the Grand Canyon, and a half-second delay between hitting a shoulder button and actually moving to the next quadrant. The lock-on mechanic is entirely broken. One minute I can track 6 targets, the next I'm lucky if I can grab 3. It's broken, plain and simple. Suffice to say, in a game like this, that's a horrible combination. I mean, I have played this game in its many forms for more than 2 decades. Hell, I've logged more than 10 hours on the original and its many ports just in the last month. I know where every single enemy will be, when they'll show up, and how to dispatch them as quickly as possible. None of that, absolutely none of that mattered here. The enemies still came where and when they should, but in most instances I had to choose between hitting targets or getting hit because the game wouldn't let me move fast enough. Let me tell you, I took a lot of hits, and I mean a lot of hits, that were very easily avoided in previous iterations of this game. The whole problem boils down to fluidity. Even with its choppy frame rate, the original was still smooth. You had control over the momentum of your movements, and coupled with the Saturn's Japanese pad, this made for a downright palpitating experience. Here it just feels wonky, unresponsive, and most importantly, slow. God, it's slow! On the normal sensitivity, your cursor moves at the speed of molasses running back uphill. And when you crank it up, the analog stick's dead zones make it seem like you're going from 0 to 60 in 0.2 seconds. And that's what really gave me the rub. Even though the game was fighting me, even though I was taking hits constantly, I was having virtually no issue breezing through levels. Like I said earlier, I have it damn near memorized. But even so, only dying towards the end of 2 levels and walking through the final boss with ease, on my very first playthrough nonetheless, it was never that easy. Hell, the game throws continues at you like it's Mardi Gras and the floats are wrapping up. This game's difficulty is either highly adaptive or it's been outright dumbed down immensely. The only real benefit to it is that hopefully newcomers to the franchise may have an easier go at it. But if I'm being realistic, the game has as much chance as Shenmue 3 did with mesmerizing series newcomers. And don't even get me started on the abysmal load times in between levels. It's just stupid. Now, I will say that after reading some comments on Twitter and Facebook that described the game's performance as better in handheld mode, I decided to give the game a second chance, and surprise, surprise, the game still ran like crap, with the same dead zone and input delay issues nonetheless. More importantly, a game shouldn't force you to play in a certain format to obtain optimal performance. If you can't obtain the same level of quality in both, then you need to work on the overall product. That's apparently not the case here, but the point remains. Plus, it rolls into my main issue with this game, which isn't even the game itself. It's the retro gaming community as a whole and our blind devotion to it. All the way back in December of 2018, Sega announced that both Panzer Dragoon and its sequel Zwei would be receiving modern HD remakes. The Sega community, and more specifically the Saturn community, lost their proverbial minds in the ensuing months, with the talk being consumed by what would be remade next, and that we, the fans, should throw our full weight and support behind anything Sega was working on. Now, you also have to remember that this was during the hype train of Shenmue 3 and Streets of Rage 4, so it was only throwing fuel on an already huge blaze. And looking back, I can see the underlying issue even then. See, the problem with blind devotion is that it's blind. Ironic, isn't it? When all you want to see is your childhood favorites revitalized and made modern, you have to understand that your bias will be incredible, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But when coupled with the magical drug that is nostalgia, it's very easy for it to be bad. And by that I mean we become incapable of recognizing faults in something. What's even made this worse for our community is that we are constantly pressing for this one thing to succeed, only so that we can get this other thing that we really want. That, folks, is what we country folk like to call trying to find a diamond in a goat's ass. It just don't jive. If a game is crap, and besides the visual fidelity of this game, it is most certainly crap compared to its forebears, then we need to voice those opinions. The surprise launch echoes the many mistakes Sega made themselves with the US launch of the Saturn. The many input delay issues being spoken of in the community with its final release were well known about 6 months ago, yet they're still present in the final release. Why was this game even developed for the Switch when it's easily the least powerful machine of this generation? Why not develop it for the PC, then port it down? Most importantly, why didn't Sega develop the game themselves? These are all legitimate questions and criticisms. Yet what have I been told every time I bring these points up? Just be happy it's happening, man. You can't please retro gamers. If we don't support it, then we'll never get a remake of Saga. Do you even hear yourselves when you type and say those things? You are the customer. You are the audience, and we don't owe Sega or anyone else our blind devotion. If they want our money, then they should earn it through the quality of the final product, and not simply because we're fans. I mean, where was all of this take it or leave it attitude when the trailer for the Sonic movie dropped? The community lost their shit, demanding that something be done. I mean, do you realize that gamers forced a company to basically double the cost of production on a Hollywood movie, all because we didn't like a CG render of a character? If we can have that much of an impact, then why don't we shout more often? Well, I'll tell you, it's because we are so emotionally attached to these games and their franchises that after nearly 20 years of being in stasis, we are itching for anything, even if it's undeserving of our praise. Is Sega putting their full weight behind these projects? Hell no. They weren't even capable of tweeting out the 25th anniversary of Panzer Dragoon earlier this month. What did they do? Slap up Mario for Mario Day and his anniversary. Did Sega back Shenmue 3? No, they made a quick buck on the HD remakes of the original and left Suzuki-san to find a way of his own for the most part. The Sega of old is dead, folks. A distant memory of a bygone time when gaming was simpler and yet had so much more spirit. The Sega franchises we grew up loving, for the most part, don't fit the modern gaming landscape. They don't sell, period. Hell, it dawned on me the other day, I'm not even a retro gamer. I'm a gamer who loves retro games, and looking at sales, I'm not in the minority. This modern landscape we live in demands constant innovation, increased story, better textures, higher frame rates, smoother controls. The goalpost is being constantly moved every day, and the games of our youth may still be amazing, revolutionary in fact, but they are games that were designed with a different time in mind. And that's how modern companies see them. Sure, we may feel that many of them are timeless, but the larger gaming community as a whole simply looks at them with little more than curiosity. Of course, retro is back in style, and plenty of companies are milking the ever-living hell out of our wallets because of it. Between up-res compilations, handheld ports, and mini consoles, the amount of retro on the market today is simply mind-boggling. And plenty of retro-style games have been successful, but most of those were awesome games that performed well upon release, and I mean functionally. Or they were from franchises with much more brand recognition. Just go and ask somebody under 25 about Sega and its many characters. I'd be surprised if you get an answer much more than Sonic, or the Genesis, or maybe even the Mega Drive. What Panzer Dragoon needed was a modern remake on a much more powerful system with a proven developer. A remake that not only honored the original but brought it into the modern era and instituted gameplay mechanics from its sequels. Not just an up-resed mobile port. And yes, some of you may feel that to be unfair, but if I'm being completely honest, the game feels like something I got off the App Store that's supposed to have ads in between the levels. I mean, I'm sure many of those behind the development of this game may in fact love the franchise, but as a die-hard fan, I'm immensely let down. Sure, they can patch the game, but the game should have already been patched. These issues were already known about. Put bluntly, they could have done better, a lot better. And I mean that. I hope they do fix this game. I hope it's made to be the best iteration of Panzer Dragoon to date. But that's not going to happen if the community just praises its mediocrity. And that brings me to my biggest concern and irritation with the Saturn community and the Panzer Dragoon community especially. If the only reason you're supporting this game is the hope that it will eventually lead to a Panzer Dragoon Saga remake, then stop. You're doing a disservice to the vast majority of the series, the fans of the franchise, and the creators of the series as a whole. Every game in this franchise is amazing, and they all have their own place in the building blocks of this story that is Panzer Dragoon. Sega haven't heard your pleas in decades, and I doubt that will ever change. Again, just look at their performance with its first remake. You, the fans, the die-hard devotees of Saga, you are the ones that will have to remake that game. Learn to code, strip the audio, build it for PC and Unreal or Unity, and make the game you want the world to see. I can promise you, you will finish long before Sega even think about starting. Show people how to mod their Saturn, how to use an action replay, lend them your games, teach them how to emulate, and bring that game to the masses that you so wish would play it. But don't ever pigeonhole the rest of the franchise for the sake of one game. It's wrong in every single way, and I can promise you that the developers of Team Andromeda and Smilebit would be deeply disheartened to know that all of their other works were so lacklusterly thrown to the side, all for just one game. It's the SSG, signing out.